Welcome, everybody, back to another episode of the Jerry Brazy podcast. I am the aforementioned Jerry Brazy, and I would love to be introducing Billy to you guys here, but he is not with me today, and I am heading to Portland next week to be with him for the week. We won't get any podcasts done when we're there, but once I get back, we will get back on this horse, and you should be seeing 2 a week. I want to open it up by talking about something that I was reading, something that I was talking to one of these kids at my gym that I go to. I go to 3 nights a week. I'm there late at night. I close the place down around midnight. I get there about 9:30. And so it's a bunch of the regular guys, and most of the guys are younger. And when I say kids, I'm talking early 20s. And I want to tell you some advice that I gave to a kid that's an aspiring actor who asked me the question. And if you ask me a question, anybody, a regular listener to this podcast over the years, you'll know that I am no BS. I am straightforward, and I'm going to tell you what I think. And I prefaced what I told him with that disclaimer that I'm going to tell you what I think. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. But this has real world impact, I think. He is 26 years old and an actor, trying to be an actor. He has other jobs, but he's trying to be an actor. And he asked me what I thought about being an actor. The question in the context of life advice and career advice. And I told him straight out that I thought that was a terrible idea. This goes back to what we constantly are hearing in society. It is everywhere, and that is that these experts are always telling us to find success by doing what you love. And I think that is crap. I think that is terrible advice. If you can do it, fantastic. But how many people do it? Very few. I sign off to all of my videos and all of my podcasts by saying opportunities are everywhere. You got to go get them. And what I mean by that is the opportunities pass by you day in and day out. And if you are not looking for them, you are going to miss what could be opportunities that would take you down a path, success-wise in life, to allow you to do the things that you love. I say it all the time. I work passionately on my jobs. I own different companies. I do different things. I have different jobs. I work passionately at those, but they're not my passion. My passion's cars, and my passion is pool, and my passion is traveling, and my passion is exercise, and my passion is what I eat. My passion is my family. My passion is not what I do for a living at all. But that is a means to an end for me, and so I do it passionately, taking advantage of opportunities as they present themselves, and then as I become successful at that, hopefully, I'm able then take the proceeds from that and work on the things that I am truly passionate about and the things that I love. So I think the kids generally today get a bad advice when they are told to chase what they love. And you ever notice how it's always people who purport to be doing the things that they love that tell you to chase the things that you love? It's like Dave Ramsey telling you don't go into debt to try to find wealth and happiness, to try to find wealth, because a debt-free life is a much life better lived. And as somebody who has used debt his entire life, that is, I think, complete crap. I would not be where I am, and I could point you to many, 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 many other mega millionaires. That is 100 millionaires or 500 millionaires and even billionaires who built their fortunes using debt. So I think that's terrible advice. And I come from nothing. I had no advantages. I had no benefits. I had nobody helping me. I had no support system. I had no resources. And I was able to do it by figuring out how the system works. I was able to find success by figuring out how the system works and making it work for me. And that is what you need to do. And once I did that, then I was able to take my kids to Africa, and we were able to take trips to China, and we were able to go and do things that as a child I could never have imagined with my 8 brothers and sisters. And so that ultimately is what I think most people are searching for, and they are caught in the trap that society tells us today that we need to do what we love. And I think that we miss those opportunities as they come in front of us when we are trying to do what we love. Now imagine if they said to you, drink what you love, eat what you love. How many 500-pound alcoholics would we have? That's a bad question, because God knows we have a ton of 500-pound alcoholics out there. It's an obesity epidemic in this country. So I think I'm making my point. rather than chase rather than eat what you love and drink what you love, you need to eat what's good for you and drink what's good for you, so that in the long run, when you want to partake of the things that aren't good for you, the ones that you enjoy, truly enjoy, it's that much more satisfying, but it doesn't kill you. And I think that success in life is found that way, much more, far more than it is found doing what you love. So I wanted to push back. The advice I gave him was, don't do it. I would not try to become an actor. So we looked it up, and less than 2% of the actors in the working world actually make a living. And a living is $45,000 to $50,000 a year. Less than 2%. There are about 245 actually working actors in Hollywood right now. These are regular actors that make enough money to make a living. And it is a fraction, a tiny fraction of that number that are the names and the household names that you and I know. So when we talk, and we see that reflected in the strike that's happening right now, it's been going on for 4 months as these people are losing their houses. And this is not the Brad Pitts of the world, of which there are only a few. And everyone else struggles and has multiple jobs while they wait to get those commercials or those small roles in television. I appreciate that, but don't put those eggs in one basket, as they say, trying to chase this thing that you are passionate about and that you dream about, only to miss what it is that you should be paying attention to that helps you get to the point where then you can go find those passions. Because the reality is you're going to find success in some strange places, man. I mean, I have owned car washes and gas stations and convenience stores, investment companies and management companies and transportation companies and woodworking companies. And I've made money and I've lost money and I've made fortunes and I've lost fortunes on all of it. And none of it was I especially passionate about, but I have a 25 to 30 year track record of hundreds of millions of dollars and a dozen businesses over the years to show that I was able to passionately work my way through these businesses and build up a significant net worth doing that, all the while chasing the things that I was passionate about. So I want to encourage all of you guys to do that same thing. Another story by the way, he didn't really appreciate that advice and he pushed back and thought I was a bit out of touch. That's fine. Everybody can decide that. It's free world. Although I will say the point of asking some of us that have been there before and done that is where the value really is. And you know, this reminds me that society tends to play down, particularly current society tends to play down the important role that those of us that have experience and have done it, much like the village elders of our forefathers and even today in other countries. And we have swept those guys aside for much of society. How many people haven't felt alienated because I don't understand those young kids anymore, or the young kids will give you don't know what you're talking about, Pops, you're out of touch, or you feel like you shouldn't say in my day. Well, in my day, I crawled out of the gutter and found success. In my day, I worked every day starting out as an 11-year-old paying taxes and stealing food as a kid to crawl up out of that gutter and ultimately build multi-hundred-million-dollar businesses and found success. Now, I lost success, I made success, I lost success, I made success. I absolutely lived that American dream. And I did that by a work ethic and an approach that in my day shadows or overshadows by far what is necessary today to find that same success. Yes, that's right. I'm saying that it's much easier today to do it than it was when I was a kid. And that is simply because the tools available to you, and the main tool that is available to you is the tool where you can go get advice. You can get expert advice, professional expert advice on almost every subject that you want to know about, that you want to learn about, that you want to find out about on the internet. I can't imagine. It's unimaginable to me the time that it takes to do it. Let's walk through this. When I was a kid, and I say that unashamedly, because if a 25-year-old is standing in front of me right now and has a question, it would be illogical for them not to ask it, because the reality is I can probably, and so many more like me, not just me, us guys that are a little bit older. I feel young at heart, but the reality is I have 55 coming up next year. I know a lot of things. I have been through hell. I have made a lot of mistakes. Oh my Lord, I made mistakes. But in those mistakes, I acknowledge every one. I am the ultimate introspective. I am the ultimate introspective. Look inside, evaluate what you did or didn't do, and learn from it person that you will ever meet. That is me. What I always said in business, I changed today what I changed yesterday. If it's not working, change it. Don't be emotionally tied to anything. Make those changes. And so that is always and has always been my mindset and my approach. And as a person then who has been through those ringers, if you will, like most older people, we have the value of a point of view reflected by our experiences. And young guys, listen to me, would be stupid not to take advantage of where we've been. Along those same lines, you got to be careful, though, because everybody's trying to sell you something. And I've been very careful on this podcast over the years to not try to sell you something. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to have some business that I might set up, that I might charge for my time, or I might want to get paid for consulting or something along those lines. I might have a direct connection with me that I think has value to the market, and whether or not the market's willing to pay for it remains to be seen, or would remain to be seen. But I am not shy in saying that at some point I might set up something like that. But that doesn't mean that this content won't continue. It doesn't mean that I won't stop talking about business and success and health and life and family and all of the pitfalls and the mountain highs that come with all of those things. So I say that with full understanding that none of us are perfect, and it is in that imperfection that lessons can be learned. So when you go to YouTube, just be careful, though, that so many people are trying to tell you what you want to hear so that they get you to buy something. And I think it is inside of that framework that so many people get caught up. I'll give you an example. I have a new podcast, the Common Sensivore podcast. This is a podcast about eating right, getting healthy, and improving your function as a human being, particularly as you get older or if you are overweight and you need a change in your life. And I just recorded episode number 2, and that will be coming out here in the next week. But in doing that, let me back up. Let me back up and say, be careful of the people online who are selling you something, because they will constantly tell you things that you want to hear and things that you are hoping to get from it. And like the guys on my social media, in the context of my Common Sensivore and my TikTok page, that reach out to me and say, Jerry, I paid $299 for a 5-week course from a guy who helped me lose 14 pounds in that 5 weeks, but I learned more watching your short 3-minute, 5-minute videos on TikTok over the last year than what he did for $299. He was warning me. He said, you're giving away content that most others are charging for. And so my content in that context is my experience, and it comes unfiltered and unvarnished, and I'm not trying to sell you something. So I'm not trying to tell you that weight loss is simple in this context, that finding success is easy if you just follow me. Here's my mastermind group. Buy in for $25 a month. Buy in. Here's my 80-page book on how to find success. But before you can read it, you got to buy it. And when you get it, it's just telling you the same things that you can hear by a dozen different people on dozens of different podcasts. Those are the people you need to be aware of, because they're going to give you so many times information that is no good to you because it's pandered. It's pandering to you. It's telling you what you want to hear to sell you the snake oil that's going to make you feel better, and rarely does it ever do that. So another thing I wanted to talk about is Axios had an article that they did on the economy and on homeowners. There is an attack. There's an ignorance by some of these major media corporations about what it is to be successful and the reasons why and the headwinds that are going against that success, particularly for people like you and me, and finding it. That is just the normal Joe trying to get out of bed in the morning and make his way for his family and make the way for himself and try to reach for more than what he had as a child and improve the lot of future generations. Axios literally did an article that says the problem with America's high home ownership rate. Let me read this right here. Check this out. America's decades-long love affair with home ownership is holding back the economy, hobbling the Federal Reserve, and exacerbating a national housing crisis. Think about this, people. These people are absolutely at war with you. When I was 20 years old, I read an article about a mortgage. I didn't know what a mortgage was. I had no idea. That's how stupid I was. I had no idea what an interest rate was. I'm from the streets, man. I went to an inner city school. I learned nothing. So I didn't know what an interest rate was. I didn't know what a mortgage was, but I knew how to read. And I read an article that talked to me about the importance of home ownership. I don't remember in what. If I would guess, it was probably in Forbes or Fortune. Maybe just the newspaper, which for many people, they won't even understand what that is, but maybe the newspaper. And so I set out to buy a house, and I did. Bought the house that my parents were living in that they were renting at the time. I was able to buy it. I paid 12% interest on an $81,000 loan. That was the first loan that I got. I was 20 years old. I went on to use that house 3 different times to refinance it over the years as I started my own business at 28. At 33, I was a millionaire. 28, I lost that first business at 29. And so then I started over again at 29, and that business took off, and I was a millionaire at 33. From 29 until probably 38 or 40, I financed that house 3 times as the company grew and grew and grew, and it needed resources and money put into it at very specific times to help it succeed at the new level as it grew. Equity, if you will, collateral, if you will. Depending on what the situation was. And so I would use the equity from the house to improve the position of the company, to try to move the company forward for its next round of financing, if it needed for some new account or some new piece of business or some interruption or some unforeseen calamity that was taking place. So that house that I bought literally drove the career that then I went on to have, buying and selling those dozens of businesses as we've talked about. And so I think home ownership is one of the most important things that you can do. I personally don't own a house, but I just sold my last house, and I've obviously bought and sold dozens of houses over the years. But I think that anybody starting out like me at 20 years old should go and buy a house. I don't care what the market is. I don't care what the interest rates are. I don't care where the world is, buy a house. And over time, that house will appreciate in value. People will tell you don't do it. There's better ways to save money. You won't save that money. You won't do it. I've been watching this for 30 years now. You won't do it. There are a few who do, but generally speaking, you won't do it. And the house is the best way to do that. You're going to pay the rent anyway. Let that equity sit there, figure out how to use it. I know people who own their houses and don't access that equity at all and don't do anything with it. That's madness as far as I'm concerned, and I can tell people and help you with how to navigate that and possibly use some of that money to move yourself forward, try different things, invest in a business, start one for yourself, whatever it might be. If you are risk adverse, that's certainly not for you. But if you're somebody that would like to get out there and give it a try, home equity is a great way to do that. But I say all that so that in the context of what I'm about to read to you is going to make some sense on where I fall on the side of home ownership. Now, it starts right off blaming us, the people, for how America's love affair with home ownership is holding back the economy. This is Axios. This rag piece of garbage writing is offensive and should be offensive to you and to me and to any other correct thinking human being in the United States. I don't want to live in a rental. I want to live in something I own and something that I take pride in and something that ultimately will make me money. Now, on the long term, it goes up, it goes down. That's the reality. But as I said, I bought my house when I was 20 years old, having no idea what it was. And it got me ultimately where I ended up. And that was far, far, far away from where I started. So America's decades love affair with homeownership is holding back the economy, hobbling the Federal Reserve and exacerbating the national housing crisis. Yes, because the debt that the government has racked up, the $31 trillion in debt, the $5 or $8 to $10 trillion they've put on just in the last 3.5, 4 years. No, that doesn't have anything to do with it. That's not impacting it at all, Axios, you ignorant morons. I can only assume that you guys are so in the bag with one political party that you are pushing this garbage on all of us because no one can be this stupid. It's not possible. It's just not possible. This is propaganda. They know what they're doing. They know what they're telling you. They're feeding you the party line because the only problem that's holding this economy back is the fact that the freaking government owes $30+ trillion and they are screwing you and me. They're screwing your children's dreams, your hopes, your ambition is being sucked out in their $30 trillion. And that is plain as the nose on my face and the one on yours. I'm going to keep reading this from these idiots. Why it matters. We're stuck here now. At this point, there's just too much wealth stored in too many houses for anything to meaningfully change. I got an idea. How about we cut the size of the federal government in half? Let's just cut it back to pre-COVID time. Save trillions of dollars. Turn things around. Let's get GDP growing 4 or 5%. Let's do that. Let's get rid of half of those 4 million federal employees. We don't need them. They don't do anything. Anybody who's ever interacted with them knows exactly what kind of value you get when you have to deal with these morons. So, life is an unpredictable journey, it continues. People change where they want or need to live all the time. A country with 66% home ownership rate is not conducive to that. This is under the heading of the big picture, as you can see here. Let me read this again, just so you know the utter moronic, illiterate writings, the nonsensical babble that we are hearing coming out in just this sentence alone. Life is an unpredictable journey. People change where they want or need to live all the time. And a country with a 66% home ownership rate is not conducive to that. Meaning a country with a 66% home ownership rate where up until the government screwed us all over by taking debt to astronomical numbers, thereby increasing inflation, ruining the interest rates, all but stopping our ability within 30 to 35 days to turn that house over wherein you have all of that value and then take it and move it and buy another house. That program, that one that's so hard to do, to put your house up for sale and sell it and then turn around and move somewhere else, like so many millions of people have, particularly so many millions of have from these crazy states that have all of this runaway nightmares up in the Northeast and over on the West Coast. And as everybody gravitates towards the South, what do they do? What have they done? They've done it no problem. I had no issue doing it. I can't even get into this freaking article. I meant to be much further along than I am at this point. But you can't read past the first couple of sentences to see how they're attacking you and I. It's our fault for buying houses. It's our fault for owning something. It's our fault for wanting to get ahead and get out and become something. It's our fault. Idiots. We get married or divorced. Children arrive, leave the home, maybe come back again. Parents sometimes move in. A job might appear in a different city, or an employer might embrace remote work, allowing a move to anywhere. Wealth and income rise and fall, afflicting the amount of house we can afford. Personal taste changes too. Someone who loves a sleek outdoor condo when they're in their 20s might prefer something secluded in the countryside a few decades later. Remember my rant a second ago? Like, you don't just sell the condominium and buy the place in the... Not even halfway through this freaking thing. For all these reasons and many more, there's a huge value in being able to easily move from one house to another. Instead, the U.S. system has effectively locked millions of Americans into a single home, one they can often barely afford and might not even much like. You don't like where you live. Imagine that. You You're supposed to what? Rent and then pay somebody else to move? Oh, who's going to own those houses that we rent? I'm curious. We need to make it easier for everybody to move by not having them own homes, which are easily bought and sold, so that we can rent homes from who? By the numbers. 20 years ago, in the third quarter of 2003, there were 83 million owner-occupied homes in America, and they were changing hands at a rate of about 6.5 million homes per year. It's a lot of houses. Today, the number of homes has increased to 96 million, but the rate of existing home sales has slumped to just 4 million homes per year. I can't imagine. Why would that be? Let's think about this. Interest rates were 3%. You could buy $1 million house for X number of amounts per month, but with interest rates now at 7.5%, you can only buy a $500,000 house for X amount per month, but no one's selling their houses because they all have 3% rates. And if they did, they can only buy half as much house as they are currently living in because the interest rates are so high. I don't see that written here, but maybe I'm just one of the glassy-eyed morons out here in the world, looked down upon by the people who fly over the top of us. Percentage-wise, it goes on to say that's a fall from 7.8% of existing homes sold per year to just 4.2%. Americans are staying in their homes for many more years on average than they used to, and that's mainly for financial reasons, not because they particularly want to stay put. The result is a deeply inefficient distribution of where people live. Not only do Americans give up happiness and even income when they stay rather than move, they also take up millions of square feet of space they are desperately needed by a growing population. How it works. Quite aside from the ludicrously high direct cost of selling a house, often 10% of the sales price. I have bought and sold God knows how many houses. I have bought, remodeled, built, and sold God knows how many houses. I have moved into and out of God knows how many houses. I have never paid anywhere remotely near 10%. Now, I will not defend the real estate industry. As a buyer of homes and a seller of homes, I will not defend that. 5% to me seems extreme. It seems it's too much. It costs too much. I think that there is a scam inherent in that. Doesn't mean I don't use brokers, doesn't mean I don't have great brokers, and I have great relationships with brokers, and I will continue to use brokers, and I will continue to have great relationships with brokers. But 10% of the sales price it's nonsensical. Tax law also provides a huge incentive for individuals to remain in a house that might be too big for them, and that could provide shelter for many more people. Let's talk about this one. The How It Works program. As someone who has taken bare land and created lots to build a house on, and then taken those lots and built foundations, and on those foundations built houses, and then took those houses and sold those to families who bought the house. The process of buying that land and taking that to fruition is so onerously, nightmarishly, unacceptably out of control. It adds so significantly to the price that, for the most part, only the largest, best-funded mega corporations publicly traded on the Nasdaq or on the stock in the stock market are able to, at scale, provide houses to families. There is a dearth of housing right now. There is not enough houses. And I can tell you from firsthand knowledge, having done this for 15 years now, particularly in the East and the Northeast and out West, especially out West, it is a nightmare by the government, forced by the government, county, city, state, feds, doesn't matter what it is. They will stop you at every turn. They are not on your team, your side. You, the person trying to buy a house, you, the taxpayer, they are not on your side. They do everything they can to get in the way of that progress taking place. They get in those areas, they have not built in other areas. They do everything they can to stop you from building. They do not assist you. They're not on your team. They're not making it easier. They're not working for you. They're working for themselves. And many times now, as the years have gone by, these places, these counties and cities and states are full of graduates, recent graduates, 25, 26, 27 years old, that have been corrupted inside of the educational system that we call state colleges and universities. And they're coming in with these agendas, and it is impossible to get anything done. That is the real reason why housing is so expensive. That is the real reason why there is a dearth of housing. There's not enough housing. It has nothing to do at all with the 10% on the sale price of a house, or people staying in a house that's too big for them that could provide shelter for many more people. That is utter lunacy. And yet, this is in a theoretical newspaper. Selling the house can trigger a significant capital gains tax. One bill in the House of Representatives wants to exempt up to $1 million in housing capital gains for tax for just this reason. Renting, the house can allow an owner to continue to reap the benefits of a low mortgage rate, but they would need to pay income tax on the rental income. Besides, the home ownership norm in many single-family neighborhoods is so ingrained that it sometimes doesn't occur to people that wanting to move doesn't have to mean selling. A market is efficient when there's abundant liquidity and scarce resources get allocated to where they can be put to best use. The rental market, by those standards, while far from perfect, is vastly more efficient than the thin and janky market in existing homes. I'm telling you people again, I'm going to say it again. The reason why the housing market is where it's at is A, the government spends it's unimaginable. I don't even know what $1 trillion means. It's unimaginable number. And there's 31 that we owe. The inflation has gone through the roof. And when inflation goes through the roof, interest rates skyrocket. My parents paid 18% on a house in the 1960s, 1970s. Okay? Just to give you an idea, I think at one point they hit 20%. Inflation certainly has been that high. It's incredible. The only way to battle it, you got to cut costs, raise interest rates. What do? They raise interest rates, and they continue their profligate spending at historical levels. But it's all meaningless anymore because it was historical levels in 2005 and 2015, and as we come up on 2024, it's historical levels. So it's never ending. Now, is life better while we're on this subject? Do you feel like your life is better today, that the government is twice the size that it was in 2012? Does that feel like it's better 10 years later? No, it's not. They could go back to 2012 spending levels tomorrow. We would see a 4% GDP, 5% GDP almost overnight. Interest rates within a few years would come back down because the government wouldn't be running these crazy-ass surpluses. Their income would come up because they're not stealing as much from us. It goes on and on. It's not a thin and janky market in existing homes because of the market. It's a thin and janky market because of the interest rates that the government has done by destroying the economy, and because of the regulations required in order to buy land, develop land, and on that developed land build lots, and on those lots, build foundations, and on those foundations build houses. This is a government problem, start to finish. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. Anybody telling you something different is trying to sell you something. The downsides of financialization. Houses are like credit cards. They're a combination of something we all need with a complex and inefficient financial product. Let's look at the Forbes 500, or when you guys have 400, when you have a chance, and see how many people in there have got there from real estate. I am certainly nowhere near that, not even close by a large margin, but I can tell you someone who came from nothing and made himself something. It was all due to real estate. In the case of credit cards, a convenient payment mechanism is blended into a very costly line of credit. In the case of houses, basic shelter is incorporated into a cumbersome and expensive forced savings device. Because you're forced. Because you can't go rent if you wanted to. That savings device, the 30-year fixed rate mortgage, is distorting the U.S. economy and making it much harder for the Fed Reserve to do its job. Again, they can't be this dumb. This is how you know this is propaganda, because no one's this stupid. At least I don't think anybody's this stupid, but maybe they are this stupid. Yeah, they probably are this stupid. The abundance of fixed-rate mortgages in the economy have rendered it largely immune to the Fed's rate hikes, thereby forcing the central bank into a higher-for-longer stance. He's saying that it's your fault. You borrowed rates at those artificial rates, you suckers. You homeowners, you U.S. tax-paying citizens, you're the suckers because You bought a fixed rate mortgage in the economy and have rendered it largely immune to the Fed's rate hikes because you did the smart thing by getting your itty bitty 3.5%. Now, that's not the 0% that the banks have been getting for the last 15 years, borrowing money that they were supposed to use to stimulate the economy, money that they were supposed to use to loan to you and me at low interest rates so that we could go out and do what we, the American people, do, which is grow, which is prosper, which is push, which is risk, which is work. That's what that money was supposed to be for, but what they do with it, they enriched themselves. They borrowed money at 0% and loaned it to us at 5-6%. They borrowed money at 0% and bought their stock back with it, making themselves rich. There's a myriad of other ways that they did it, borrowing that money that are too complicated to get into. But to blame us for taking advantage of 3.5% interest rates over the last 30 years, the way that we have, is the height of hypocrisy. And it is a jab in your face and a jab in mine. It is obfuscating and redirecting what the real reason is. It's covering up for a corrupt government that is destroying your future and the future of your children and blaming you for it. It's exactly what they're doing. In a speech on Friday, Federal Chairman Jerome Powell, these are all the smartest people in the world. You know, these smartest people in the world that got us into this, and now old Jerome Powell are the smartest people in the world that are going to get us out. Was at pains to point out that the house prices and rent prices are still going up even after 11 rate hikes. Indeed, he worries that even now the housing sector is showing signs of picking back up. Oh no, stop you guys. Stop with all, sell those houses now and get yourself a 7.5% interest rate because Jerome Powell and all the other ghouls at the Fed Reserve need you to do that so that they can avoid what is happening that they caused. So get with it. Get rid of that house. Go buy half as much. Hurry up. Indeed, he worried that even now the housing sector is showing signs of picking up. I read that already. Now I'm pissed. Key stat, U.S. mortgage debt now totals $12 trillion or 45% of GDP. Oh my God, no, don't say it's not so. Between the lines, houses, or rather mortgages, have become the primary means of American middle-class wealth creation. So we need to destroy that right now. It's been the means of American middle-class wealth creation for, 60, 70 years. Let's blow that bad boy up. That sounds crazy. Man, whose idea was that? The principal amount outstanding on a mortgage slowly declines over time, even as the value of the home generally goes up. The result, if everything goes according to plan, which it has over 70 years, if the government hadn't been spending money the way that it does, it would continue, is ever greater home equity and therefore wealth. Where it stands, a U.S. household in the middle earnings quintile has $145,000 in median net worth, according to the Census Bureau. Of that, $93,000 or 65% is equity in their own home. Amazingly, that number includes the 36% of households in the middle quintile who don't own their home at all and for whom home equity is therefore 0% of their net worth. Zoom out, houses have become America's most important financial asset. As a result, a majority of the population is literally invested in seeing the value of homes always go up. Because we don't do anything else in those houses, right? No, wait. Wait. What else do we do in those? I can't think. Oh, yeah. We live in them. They're the roof on our heads, like where I am now. Studios in my house. The roof over our heads. We live in those houses. They're not just equity reserves. They're not savings. They're savings secondary, but they're homes first and foremost, where children are born, where lives are grown, where memories are created, where relationships are made, where experiences are had, where memories are recorded and written down at Christmases and Thanksgivings and Halloweens and New Year's and birthdays and summer and fall, and lawns get mowed and neighbors have parties and lifetime friendships are created and families are grown and the kids move out and the mom and the dad and sell, buy a smaller house, and the kids get out of college and the cycle repeats. Stop doing that. Not good for you. The result is endemic NIMBYism, knee-jerk local opposition to any attempt to build more desperately needed houses pretty much anywhere by the government. Because homeowners are much more likely to vote than renters and infinitely more likely to vote in local elections than people who would like to move into the district but can't afford to, politicians have every incentive to hobble new construction. That is, of all the things I've read to you, that is the biggest lie of all. I have personal knowledge, and I could line up a line of contractors and a line of developers and a line of people who flip homes who will tell you what the absolute truth is. The government is in the way, period. End of story. It has nothing to do. I've never had a conversation with somebody who said, you know what, it's too easy to build houses. We need to make it more difficult. The only people who want it more difficult, as is usual, follow the money. That's right, those Fortune 500 publicly traded giant behemoth house builders. The more complicated something is, the more they benefit. The less complicated it is, the more we benefit. You just remember that. So in that context, corporatism, this is an article, this is a sentence here written that directly defines corporatism. It has nothing to do with you and me. That is a lie. That is demonstrably provable a lie. And remember that. This is your government working together with large corporations to make your life more difficult. That's what that is. Bottom line, all humans need shelter, but home ownership has created a class of winners. Think of everyone snugly sitting on a mortgage fixed at 3%, regardless of what the Fed does, who also have a financial incentive to deny new shelters to others. So that's madness, obviously. You all know it's madness. I know it's madness. Let me know in the comments. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. I'm not. But let's have that conversation. I'm always interested to hear what people have to say. But just before you do, understand that I come from someone who bought a house using an FHA loan, that's a government-assisted loan, to buy it at 3% down, at 12% interest when I was 20 years old, and grew a career as an entrepreneur that did hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue in a dozen businesses from that house. I'm also someone who has bought and sold and flipped more houses than I can count. I'm also somebody who has lived in multiple houses. And I'm also someone who has not only developed land, built the lots on which the houses are built, and then built those houses and sold those houses. So I have intimate knowledge on how this process works. And I can tell you, in one of the worst areas to do it in, it's not LA, it's not California, but it's Oregon. It ain't too far away. It's not Seattle. That'd be pretty bad too. Any one of these places, you can name them. Go up and down the West Coast and the Northeast. It's an absolute nightmare. Move to the South, move to the way Southeast. They literally, relatively want to make it easier for you to get that done, not make it harder on you. Doesn't mean that it's perfect, because it's not. But it is 50% better than it is in those parts of the world. And that's where the prices are the highest and the inventory the lowest. The government could fix this tomorrow, and they don't. That is the Jerry Brazy podcast for today. I really appreciate everybody tuning in and listening. I'm excited to be back. If you like this kind of content, this is what we're going to have. We will be working on some guests here coming up. I'm excited about that, and we will give you guys the information for them as soon as we have it. But in the meantime, if you like the content, please like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to leave a comment, good, bad, or indifferent. Beat me up or let me know that you appreciated hearing it. And I look forward to getting this podcast back up and moving as we barrel towards 300 Jerry Brazy podcasts. I can't believe it. I'm going to leave you with one thing. I say it all the time. Opportunities are everywhere. Government be damned. You got to go get them. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Bye.